It is getting late. Moonlight spread across the entire mansion. Voices echoed through one of the quiet rooms. Well then, shall we go over this week's activity report on Lam Wei? Yusha nodded and spoke softly. From the Northern Division, Solong cheerfully reported that everything had been taken care of. He sounded almost proud. Heads of the slave traders. All of them. He hopped around excitedly. See that, they did not even know who I was. I really liked the outfit I had tailored. I told them that if they could guess my eye color, I would spare them, but none of them could. Ryan also added that all the corpses had been buried neatly. Sitting on the staircase, Rodmal chimed in as well. The southern side's done too. He went on, those illegal human experiment labs and that troublesome Avalon bunch, everything was torn apart without leaving a trace. Yusha let out a twisted, eerie smile. Good. Everything is going exactly as he desires. She continued, we exist for the glory of the Great Moon. All of them belonged to the secret organization Lam Wei, a group devoted to worshipping the Great Moon. However, a new problem had surfaced. Yusha frowned. Under his command, everything should have been perfect. Why is there an issue at all? Rodmal explained that the leader of Avalon was actually the eldest son of a count. During the Southern Purge, a dangerous document had been uncovered. It seemed the Count's eldest son had been plotting against his own father. Yusha was surprised, though she did not show much on her face. What? An eerie power radiated from her entire body. So it is true. Even those standing nearby were frightened by the pressure she emitted. She lifted the document in her hand. After the Count becomes frail and ill, he intends to quietly eliminate him with poison. Furiously, she crushed the paper in her fist. Unbelievable. And yet you were right. 2 years later, just as predicted, Count Palacio passed away. The official cause of death was listed as cardiac arrest, but judging by the circumstances, drug abuse leading to his demise, it was far too obvious. A voice somewhere murmured, "What, Lam Wei again?" Alon listened in silence. Yes. They assassinated him in the middle of the night, yet another nighttime killing. Seeing the situation, Alon thought that the nobles were finally becoming cautious of Lam Wei. In addition, the Count's funeral ended in utter silence. Not a single person mourned him. The ceremony ended quickly, without a shred of warmth. Everyone left coldly. Evan finally asked, "Young master, what should we do? The eldest son, he will inherit the title next year, right? And what is with all this luggage?" Alon was packing. "You are packing too." "We are leaving," he said matter-of-factly. Evan blinked. "Leaving? You are going to leave the estate?" "Not exactly," Alon replied. "We are heading south." After they finished packing, Evan asked again, "South, do you mean Rodmal?" "Yes," Alon answered. He planned to move to a small village in the southern region of Palacio territory, Rodmal. Someone was already watching him from the upper floor. Leo had observed everything from beginning to end without saying a word. Later, the smell of fried eggs and warm bread filled the kitchen. Someone cheerfully cooked on a pan, enjoying it so much that it made Alan's stomach growl. But their peaceful life lasted only briefly. After 3 days, they were back at the Count's mansion. Alon clutched his head in frustration. What now? Another funeral, this time for the eldest son. His voice sagged with exhaustion. "I can't believe it. We are back in this blood-soaked place again. But the signs of death this time. They are completely different. How did he die so quickly?" He stared at Leo's body inside the coffin. The cause of death was obvious, a sword thrust straight through the heart. Alan's mind raced. Who could have done it? Who killed Leo? He turned to ask about the cause of death, but the moment he spoke, the nearby guards jolted in terror. They flinched violently, their faces pale. "We apologize for looking at you, my lord." Alon froze for a second. What was wrong with them? Why were they suddenly reacting like that? Without another word, he walked past the anxious group. Evan hurried after him. "Young master," he called. Alon lowered his voice. "Evan, did you find anything?" "Yes," Evan answered quietly. "About that." "Young master, could it be?" He leaned in, whispering, "Were you the one who wiped out Avalon in a single night?" Alon turned sharply. The servants nearby were passing through the hallway, but all he could see on their faces was confusion and a hint of fear. A few days earlier, on the way to Rodmal, Evan had spoken up. By the way, young master, if you are going to leave anyway, would not choosing a proper city be better? Alon thought to himself, absolutely not. Rodmal is the final destination in my plan. He had already saved the 5 great sins from their tragic origins and prevented the world's destruction. Rodmal had no connection to the original storyline, and there was a palatial estate there as well. It was the perfect place to live comfortably, as a noble, a place where he could enjoy a peaceful, indulgent life. Alon answered slowly, there is a reason for everything. Evan immediately pushed back. I am not falling for that again. You always dodge the question like this when something actually bothers you. Alon clicked his tongue at Evan's exasperated tone. Fine, think whatever you want. The carriage rolled out of the Count's estate. Leo watched from above, debating whether he should kill Alon now or not. After all, whether Alon stayed or left, he was useless to Leo's plans. He had even considered poisoning Alon after their father died. But since Alon was quietly heading toward the border, Leo decided there was no longer reason to eliminate him. Still, the recent failures of Avalon weighed heavily on his mind. He gripped the balcony railing tightly, irritation simmering beneath the surface. Finally, he called for his servant Alman to follow the carriage. Alman, Leo's right-hand man, asked, so you want me to kill him? Leo's eyes widened. What? Was Alman questioning his orders? He had never complained before. Why now? Leo's expression darkened. Your job is to obey me. The moment those words left his lips, a sword pierced straight into his chest. Leo gasped. Why you? How dare you betray me? But the one holding the sword was no loyal servant. It was Hedan, a member of the secret order Lam Wei. I have enjoyed watching Avalon's little civil war, he said coldly. But I am not Alman. I am a blade forged by the Crimson Moon. Lam Wei acts according to the will of our great moon. And if anyone dares to harm it. He drove the sword in deeper before pulling it out with a clean, practiced motion. We are permitted to act freely. Blood splattered across the marble floor as Leo collapsed. Hedan watched him fall with a calm, almost bored expression. That is why I waited for you to say those words. Hard to believe it took 2 whole years. Leo hissed weakly, my people won't let you escape. With what you have done, Avalon will vanish from the continent forever. Hedan shook his head with feigned disappointment. A shame. The great moon gave you a chance. Then he vaulted over the balcony railing and disappeared into the dawn. Morning light crept across the horizon. The sun rose, marking the start of another peaceful day. For Rodmal, it truly was paradise. Alon woke up cheerfully. Good morning. He stretched lazily, enjoying the sight of another quiet, tranquil day. He ate when he wanted, ate whatever he wanted, and finally lived the life of a proper noble. As he munched on bread, he even thought he might start a bakery business for fun. Evan entered carrying a letter. Young master, a letter has arrived. Alon took it, puzzled. What is this? The bread slipped from his hand as he read. The letter stated that after Leo's death, Count Palacio required him to return at once. And so, his paradise ended in just 3 days. He soon found himself standing gloomily at his brother's funeral, back at the mansion yet again. As he stared at the terrified crowd, he wondered why everyone was reacting so strangely. Evan finally asked, young master. Since when did you become the mastermind behind wiping out Avalon? Alon blinked in confusion. In other words, he was trapped inside a non-stop chain of bizarre misunderstandings. Curling up in the corner, he could only despair. Hey, Evan. Can you explain it to me in a way I can actually understand? How did I become the mastermind? Evan answered calmly. Because you were the only one left alive after it all happened. Leo was killed right after we left the mansion. That gives you a perfect alibi and conveniently makes you the heir. Alon froze after hearing Evan's explanation. The realization hit him hard. Evan went on, Avalon has vanished completely. There is no one left to cause trouble over Leo's death. His tone suddenly brightened as he added, almost cheerfully, so you have become the mastermind complete with a master-level assassin working under your command. Is not that great? By the way, what is with that outfit? Alon pressed his fingers to his temple, thinking carefully. When the hell did this even start? There is no organization in this world that can erase an underground giant that quickly. He looked at Evan. Wait. Did not you tell me there was a group that hunts other organizations? You mean Lam Wei? Evan asked. That is, right. Do you think it was them? Evan shook his head. The Intel network claims it was not. They said Lam Wei never leaves bodies behind, only their symbol. But the members of Avalon were killed by sword. The whole place looked like a slaughterhouse. That is why they think you are the mastermind with a sword-wielding expert under your command. Alon suddenly realized, right. Lam Wei never appeared in the original game, and there is no way some weak early arc group is strong enough to wipe out a major organization before the main storyline even begins. So who the hell did this? Meanwhile, on the other side, Yusha was already interrogating her team. Did any of you leave traces? Ryan immediately answered, we left nothing. Solong chimed in, me neither. Same here. He laughed with twisted pride. The only thing left there were corpses. Just then, the doors opened and a familiar voice rang out. We are here. The Rodmal division had arrived, all of them calm and composed. The remaining forces of Avalon 486 members had been dealt with. Rodmal reported with a grin that matched exactly what their leader expected. We cut them in half. Yusha's eyes glimmered with satisfaction. Good. Perfect. And just like that, Avalon, a massive organization that once dominated the kingdom of Asteria, was reduced to ashes in only 5 days. But Rodmal stepped forward again. However, it seems the cleanup is not finished. What do you mean? Yusha asked. He raised a stack of documents. I found more nobles connected to Avalon. The Asterian principality appears to be deeply involved. The room fell silent. Yusha opened the folder, her expression darkening like a storm cloud. The pressure she emitted was enough to make even her own people tense. You already know what I am going to say, do not you? Everyone understood without needing further explanation. Not a single person replied. Rodmal spoke up calmly, almost casually. Let us eliminate them quietly. Yusha let out a long breath, then turned to Ryan. So the Information Guild has cleared everything up, right? Ryan lifted the sheet of paper in her hand and replied, yes. They have concluded this matter has nothing to do with Blue Moon. Standing beside her, Deus added, the guilds came to the same conclusion. They are calling it a hellscape carved out by a swordsman. Hearing that, she asked, we are still monitoring the situation. Correct. Yusha gave a faint smile. Keep going. This issue must never involve that person. I have said it countless times already, so everyone understands, right? Papers floated up around her, suspended mid-air at her command as she continued. But since that person's own bloodline dared to target him first, this incident is not a matter of orders. Remembering his face, she spoke softly, we are a sword. The moment the words left her mouth, Yusha grew visibly excited, covering part of her face. A sword is not allowed to think for itself. Right. Her eyes glimmered with a red light as she turned toward the window. Blue Moon must act according to orders. Remember, he knows everything. The 4 people nearby stiffened, watching her silently. Her voice was filled with unwavering resolve. Never disappoint that person. Deus glanced at Yusha, confused. How could someone as overwhelmingly capable as she was be anxious, restless just because she might be discovered? Then he raised the bundle of documents in his hand. I understand now. It is all for the Great Moon. All because of him. Meanwhile, at the Count's estate, the lights inside the manor still burned through the night. Alon sat at his desk, exhausted beyond belief. I can't do this anymore, he groaned. When he lifted his head, tears were already streaming down his face. Ever since the funeral, he had been unbearably busy for an entire month. I just want to relax and live off money, he muttered. Is not that what nobles do? Looking down at the documents piled before him, he sighed. Even though he had created plenty of grudges, Leo's death was originally meant to happen 6 years later. His brother's death had shifted the game's timeline, and now every responsibility of the family had fallen onto him. Just as that thought crossed his mind, a voice called out from beyond the door. Little Count, several elderly retainers entered. Each one carried stacks of objects, books, scrolls, armloads of paperwork. Seeing the mountain of work approaching, Alon only sighed deeper. The dark circles under his eyes were now unmistakable. Why were they working so hard now of all times? When the previous count was alive, they took their sweet time, cutting corners whenever they could. From afar, the old men noticed his gloomy expression and froze in terror. Is he angry? I should work even harder, I do not want to die. And just like that, while Alan's complexion grew paler from overwork, the vassals became increasingly diligent, no doubt driven by the rumors painting him as the mastermind behind the massacre. I called for you. Why did not you come? He snapped. At this point, Alan was nothing more than a corporate slave running a small office, working in silence from dawn till night. In his heart, he wished desperately that they would simply handle everything themselves. Scene shift. Flames flared, and the meat slowly roasted over the fire. Evan addressed him. He sounded puzzled as he lifted his head. I have to say, I am honestly shocked. Alan was manipulating mana, letting it swirl and glide around the room with casual ease. Evan continued, to reach rank 2 after only 2 years of self-study, your talent is extraordinary. When did you start developing this fast? He added. Normally it takes around 4 years to reach rank 2, and magic can't even be used properly unless someone is born with a special blessing. Alan replied calmly, maybe I am naturally gifted. I was worried, so I trained hard for self-defense. Internally, he thought to himself that this technique required precise mana control as well. He kept the magic circling restlessly around him, though the truth was that it still was not complete. His expression was one of weary frustration. He had never imagined he would actually end up using magic in a fantasy world. Controlling the swirling mana, he muttered. At first, I was excited. Once my plan was finished, the danger would disappear, so I figured I could slow down. Just take my time. Right then, the orb of magic rose into the air, only to flicker. Lately, survival had become a very real concern. He had come to accept a painful truth. His eyes stung with frustration as he admitted it to himself. His mana pool was absurdly small. Nothing works, Alan sighed. The memories of what he had read came flooding back. A person's mana pool was like the physique of an athlete fixed from birth. And his own was tiny. Thinking about it hurt more than he expected. He had come to accept that no amount of training would change it. As he ate, he mulled over the issue. If every other solution failed, there was still one option left. Just then, Evan picked up a letter and said, "Ah, right. A ballroom invitation has arrived for you, young master." Alan turned toward him at the mention of a ball. And just like that, the night of the event arrived. He stood before the grandiose mansion where the gathering would be held. Nobles filled the hall in elegant attire. Wearing the formal garments of a count, Alan entered with Evan at his side. He exhaled the moment his foot crossed the threshold. Great. I am already tired. It was a standard Southern Asterian noble ball, an opportunity for networking and building connections. Since he would soon succeed the title of count, it was probably wise to seize this chance and form a few beneficial relationships. Alan adjusted the cloth at his collar and stepped deeper into the hall. Behind him, Evan was already stuffing food into his mouth as he asked, muffled, "What exactly are you doing, sir?" Alan thought to himself that befriending nobles was essential for the peaceful life he wanted. But the moment he approached a group, everyone recoiled at the mere sight of him, scrambling out of his way. When he reached out to shake hands with one man, the poor fellow panicked instantly before the entire group fled as if chased by ghosts. Next to him, Evan could not help laughing as he tried to comfort him. Do not take it too hard. Haha. Really, do not be upset. Alan watched them scatter and thought, upset, not really. I expected this. He simply said, Evan, I am heading home. He knew perfectly well why they avoided him. His reputation was in shambles. He was nothing like the former glory of the old days. The Palacio of today was the black sheep of the East. Still, he had not come here without a plan. Lifting a glass of red wine, Alan decided he would handle this with his secretly practiced social skills. He spoke aloud, the flavor of this wine is quite distinctive. A young woman nearby turned her head toward him and froze. His presence alone seemed terrifying. Then he added, with an unintentionally deep, ominous tone, especially the aroma. It is rather unique. Alan smiled gently, or at least, what he believed was a gentle smile. On his face, however, it resembled something far more sinister. I would like to have a few bottles at home. To him, it was polite conversation, a friendly smile necessary for socializing. To her, it was the devil whispering in her ear. The young noblewoman went pale, trembling uncontrollably, before blurting out, "I will speak with my father and arrange everything right away." Then she bolted, terrified. Alon blinked after her, dumbfounded. "Wait, no, that is not what I meant." He muttered inwardly, "That is not what I meant at all." Behind him, whispers began to ripple through the crowd. He threatened her for a limited edition bottle, did not he? Worse than his brothers. An even bigger thug. Evan tried to stifle his laughter, giving Alon a sympathetic pat on the shoulder. Meanwhile, Alon desperately clung to denial. She was probably just shy. They finally left the ball, and Evan remarked, "Your spoils of war have increased again." He said it cheerfully while munching on a snack. "It is an impressive list, honestly." Beside him, Alon looked utterly defeated. "I was just trying to learn about wine," he muttered. Evan began reciting the gifts he had acquired. A fine Paldian stallion, Fenian orange tea, refined Violanda metalwork, Malentino specialty wine. It really was a stunning list. Meanwhile, the protagonist himself was spiraling deeper into despair. It turned out the name Palacio was infamous in ways he had not fully understood. Rumors said he had murdered his own delinquent brothers. Whether he liked it or not, he had become someone everyone instinctively avoided. Goodbye socializing. Was it just his imagination, or had he truly grown distant from the world? Exhausted, he sighed, "I am going to get some air." Evan remained behind. "Yes, sir." Not far away, a red-haired girl silently observed him. She studied him with a thoughtful expression before slipping outside to lean against the balcony railing, watching the scenery. Alon stared into the night, troubled. When did everything start going wrong? What exactly was the mistake? Just then, a voice spoke up behind him. "Excuse me, may I speak with you for a moment?" Alon stiffened. "Someone's speaking to me. Who?" He spun around but saw no one. Another voice floated upward from below. Startled, he looked down, and a petite girl appeared before him. She curtsied lightly. Loria, third daughter of Duke Ultia. The moment he heard the name, he thought grimly, Ultia. Of course. "Hello," Alon replied politely. The Ultia family was one of the three great villain houses of the spirit arts world, the black sheep of the north. In his mind, Alon sighed. "Anyone who willingly talks to me cannot be normal." He studied the small girl. Why did not I remember her? She was not in the game. Was she? Suddenly Loria spoke, her tone surprisingly steady. "I will be direct. Please lend me your strength." Alan's expression darkened immediately, becoming cold and ominous in the moonlight. Loria grew flustered but forced herself to continue. "I am going to be assassinated soon." Her voice drifted gently across the night, chilling him to the bone. Loria's face tightened with fear as she looked up at him. Hearing her words, Alon could not help thinking of how he had been cherished by his father, protected like an unofficial, secret child. But the Duke of Ultia was now gravely ill. Loria's voice trembled as she continued, "My half-sisters. They are planning to kill me." So it all comes down to a fight for survival, Alon thought. No wonder he did not remember her from the game. She had already been dead by the time the story began. With desperate urgency, Loria pleaded, "If it is your strength, Lord Alon. Please." But he answered simply, "I refuse." She tried again, her voice shaking. "I am not asking for help for free. If you protect me, I will give you half the Ultia family." But he was already turning away. "I will take my leave." Inwardly, he sighed. She was pitiful, yes, but just keeping himself alive was already more than enough trouble. Taking on someone else's life and death struggle, impossible. He did not possess any special power, no matter what the rumors claimed. Still, Alon glanced back at the lonely young girl standing by herself. Her expression was quietly devastated. He rubbed the back of his neck and let out a long breath. "I hope something good happens for her. I hope she finds an ally somewhere." Then he headed back into the ballroom. Not far away, two figures in black cloaks were whispering to each other. "So Ultia has already made contact with the Great Moon. I suppose I should tell the Scarlet Moon that fortune is approaching their chosen one. The woman beside him replied, no, do not bother. If the intel is correct, she is the only member of the Ultia household with no ties to Avalon. From above, they watched Loria with sharp eyes. If she was uninvolved with Avalon, then she was not one of Rodmal's targets. That is good, the man said coolly as he turned away. All the other Ultias will be dealt with eventually. Indeed. Under the Scarlet Moon's orders, we are focusing on severing the flow of information so the Avalon incident never reaches him. While they monitored the girl, their attention drifted back down to Alon inside the hall. At that moment, he was sighing heavily, feeling strangely hollow. It was as if the ballroom itself was wrapped in some invisible barrier keeping everyone away from him. He did not notice the mysterious figure standing nearby. Hello, the girl said softly. Just hearing someone speak to him made Alon emotional. Was that directed at me? Really, am I finally going to make a noble acquaintance? He quickly turned around. Yes, hello. The girl lifted her fan slightly, smiling behind it. The moment he saw that elegant, veiled smile, he felt a chill. Again, another shady one. He recognized her face instantly. Anyone who approaches me first is never a normal noble. Once he realized who she was, he stepped forward politely. Good evening, Lady Zenonia. The girl Kalia blinked, surprised. Oh my, you know who I am. Of course, Alon said calmly. You are very well known. There were 3 infamous villain families in the kingdom of Asteria. To the north, the Ultias. To the east, the Palatios. And to the west, the degenerate Zenonia clan. She reminded him of a regal serpent, graceful, but undeniably dangerous. Kalia chuckled softly. Well known, me. She was the eldest daughter of Count Zenonia. If the Palacio family was a criminal gang, then the Zenonia clan was the refined, corporate, fully legalized mafia version. The thought alone made him shiver. He only needed a few noble connections to secure a peaceful life. That was it. Nothing more. Nothing dangerous. Even if half his lifeline was already hanging by a thread, he absolutely could not afford to get involved with people like her. He forced a light smile. It is because you are very beautiful. Thank you for the compliment, she replied with another graceful smile. I do hope we can talk more. What do you think? Alon remained composed. I would like that too. But too many eyes are watching us already. Alon silently prayed to himself. Please, just let me go quietly. Kalia looked at him and said something cryptic, just as the rumors say. Then she turned away, adding, I hope we meet again soon. Alon blinked in confusion. Before he could react further, Kalia had already walked off in another direction. He watched her leave, dumbfounded. What the hell just happened? From above, 2 figures observing the scene spoke quietly. The Avalon incident has been completely contained, one of them added. However, a new lead has appeared. Their eyes fixed on a window where someone was hiding in a tree, silently tracking him. A tail, one murmured. 2 small figures darted off swiftly. There is no direct order yet, so we will just observe. If necessary, we can intervene. Meanwhile, Evan scratched his head in confusion. Master, are you sure this is real this time? They stood before a narrow mountain gorge. And Evan glanced around skeptically. This is the place we have been searching for all this time, he continued. Even in broad daylight, it is unusually dark inside. Alan's face lit with determination as he clenched his fists. Finally. We have found it. This had to be the real target, he thought. The environmental effects matched perfectly, confirming that this was indeed the spot. Evan groaned. If this turns out to be a fake again, I am going to lose it. They stepped inside cautiously, scanning their surroundings. Strange runes covered the stones, and Alon nodded. This time, it is the real deal. In the game, it was much easier to find. In truth, the reason he had come all this way under the pretense of a scouting mission was because of the Southern Labyrinth. Known as the Whispering Maze, solving all the puzzles across its 8 chambers promised a valuable holy artifact as a reward. Alon smiled faintly as he looked ahead. I still remember all the instructions. And that exhilarating feeling of grinding for loot. Ahead of them stood a massive gate inscribed with strange characters. Alon gazed up at it in awe. seeing the entrance to the maze in real life. Even though I grew tired of it in the game, standing here now feels completely different. Evan's eyes widened. This gorge. It looks like it was handcrafted by humans. How do you know places like this? Alon lifted his chin and replied casually, I have been here many times. Evan's brow furrowed in confusion. You have been here many times, he asked, startled, as his mind swirled with wonder. Alon smirked lightly. Just kidding. I have my own ways. Let us go. Seeing that grim expression, Evan could not help but shout, please, do not say things like that with such a serious face. As soon as they stepped inside, a monstrous roar echoed from above. Its massive hands clenched together, producing a terrifying sound that resonated through the cavern. Evan looked around in awe. It feels like if you make a single wrong move here, you will be crushed instantly. Alon, however, remained silent, evaluating calmly. The horrifying sounds continued relentlessly. Evan froze, watching Alon write strange symbols on a stone tablet with a calm, unreadable expression. How can he stay so composed, Evan thought, staring at him as he inscribed the cryptic lines. Even in a situation like this, Alon seemed completely unshaken. Memories of the past 4 years together flashed through Evan's mind. He still could not fully understand him. No two missions they had undertaken were ever the same, repaying a debt for someone, rescuing an orphaned child, annihilating a demonic organization, delivering a meaningless letter. Each task was entirely unique. At that moment, the monster above showed no signs of stopping, and Evan could not fathom how Alon knew so much about this place, having never left the mansion. Calmly, Alon pointed toward the creature. The puzzle sequence is correct, but it has not unlocked yet. We have to wait until that thing finishes first. The terrifying sounds continued unabated, echoing through the labyrinth. Evan continued to think to himself. Yet, following this mysterious young master always seemed to lead to something good. The two of them looked ahead, and Alon said calmly, "Ah, it is opening." Evan's heart skipped a beat. What is he planning this time, young master? Deep down, he muttered nervously, finally, the door's opening. Oh God, I feel like I am going to be sick. I knew this place was tough, but I did not expect it to be this brutal. I almost broke my neck trying not to look, he whispered to himself. Before them now lay a massive pile of gleaming treasures, illuminating the entire chamber. Evan could not hide his excitement. Finally. It is done, is not it? Alon replied without emotion, yes. Take the black ring and let us go. At a distance, 6 rings were mounted on a fake hand. Evan stared at them, unimpressed. They look completely useless. Alon picked up the black ring, examining it carefully. It is a bit large, but touching anything else will just bring trouble. Better to leave them be. He silently stared at the ring, thinking, finally. The restraining ring is mine. Then he added, do not worry. The way back is safe. Evan stammered in response, why yes. As they moved, Alon felt a sense of ease. Thanks to remembering the game's instructions, this task had been surprisingly simple. But Evan's face betrayed his worry. Young master, did you anticipate all of this? He asked nervously. Ahead, towering golems blocked their path. Turns out the stone walls in that gorge had been living constructs all along. Evan's mind raced, calculating every possible move. Unknown enemies. This is incredible. At least there has to be a way to get him out safely. Alon strode forward, declaring, this time, I will handle it. Evan froze, astonished, as the monstrous creatures all turned toward them simultaneously. Whatever you are planning, the top priority is getting out safely, he reminded urgently. A golem lunged forward. Wait, second-tier magic won't be enough. In that moment, Alon whispered, binding, activate. The black ring on his hand flared with a dark light. The golems shuddered, their forms flickering as the light spread across them. Then a voice echoed from the void above. The fragment inherits the great will of Mala. Speak the 2 limits you can develop. Alon stood alone in the pitch-black space. He glanced around. In the game, this would have triggered a selection window. So that had been the source of the voice. Suddenly, a massive face materialized from the shadows. It was the reward for completing the binding maze. True to its name, it was a holy artifact that absorbed the user's power, but in return came with strict limitations. Alan's body tensed slightly, a shiver running through him. The voice was overwhelming, and it felt as if he truly existed in this world. He spoke aloud the first limit. The voice responded immediately, prompting him further. Alan continued, in all procedures, the hand seals of Babylonia are absolutely mandatory. The voice asked, what do you wish to gain from this binding? Alan answered decisively, the power to bend the world's rules a little further. Streams of energy swirled and merged in the void, pulsating around him. Granted, the voice intoned. Evan lifted his head, staring into the darkness as light began to emerge. Alan said next, the second limit. The voice resounded once more, commanding, speak. Alan formed another hand seal and continued, in all procedures, only the sacred words of Babylonia may be used. The voice responded once more, and what do you wish to gain from this binding? He answered calmly, the same as before. For a moment, the voice seemed to fall silent. Alan looked up, puzzled. Damn it. Did I mess up a step? I even mirrored the skill icon perfectly. Choose both the hand seals and the sacred words as limits to maximize attack power. Sweat trickled down his temple. He had perfected every seal and incantation through countless repetitions, so this time, failure was not an option. Almost immediately, the voice spoke again, its tone resonating faintly through the void. O mortal who has memorized the seals and divine words of the great forgotten God, we express our gratitude to the one who carries forth his will. Alan frowned in confusion. Carries forth his will, what does that mean? Then, the ring on his hand vanished. He realized it was being absorbed, a sign that the binding had succeeded. The voice spoke one final time. I have always watched over you. You inherit that will. Back in reality, Evan's voice rang out in alarm. Young master, second-tier magic. Before them, the towering monsters charged forward. Evan reached out anxiously, feeling powerless. Alan, however, remained composed, his eyes calm and unshaken. He began channeling magic through his hands. The iron sphere should have blazed with radiant light, but it only glimmered faintly, even as he poured all of his mana into it. No matter how much he trained, he could not surpass this inherent limit. It was time, then, to test the power of the binding and the cost it demanded. With that thought in mind, Alan formed a magical sphere in the palm of his hand. Slowly, the orb grew, gathering energy with an almost tangible weight. The monsters continued to charge toward them relentlessly. Alan raised his hand, directing the magical sphere straight forward, ready to confront the imminent onslaught. It was time to test it. Alan immediately brought the magical sphere into play. With a decisive motion, he hurled the orb into the air, invoking the seal's limits and accepting the price it demanded. As the refractive incantation activated, the sphere transformed into a pale, ethereal blue flame, flickering and twisting in the shadowed space. Next came the countershock technique. Bolts of lightning began striking continuously along the veins of the cavern. The sphere grew ever brighter, casting an eerie glow across the dark expanse. Using the azure light spell, the orb expanded and spun, unleashing a barrage of electrical arcs that danced outward in all directions. Finally, with the linear diffraction technique, Alan's mastery of his hand movements became evident. Streams of crackling energy shot forth from his palms. The lightning surged directly toward the pursuing monsters. Evan could only stare in disbelief, utterly amazed. The bolts of electricity struck the hunters from every angle, arcs snapping violently through the air. As the lightning faded, the electric currents lingered, leaving the colossal golems paralyzed and motionless. Alan and Evan stood silently atop the cliff, observing the stunned remnants below. After only a few seconds of quiet, another storm of lightning erupted, sweeping across the giants. Limbs and fragments fell apart, scattered across the cavern floor. Flashes of electricity shimmered, then gradually faded. When the dust cleared, Alan and Evan looked down at the scene. What had once been massive golems now lay reduced to shattered rubble. Alan's expression remained utterly impassive, but Evan's face reflected shock and disbelief. He whispered under his breath, "Damn it. This is unreal." Once the electric currents along the cliff had dissipated, the two of them carefully descended. Evan could not stop chattering along the way, asking if Alon had really been hiding his true power all this time. Alon replied lightly, brushing it off, impossible. Evan, stubborn and incredulous, pressed further. I have been 15 years as a mercenary, and I have never seen anything like this. You are telling me that is really just second-tier magic? Alon only gave a brief, dry affirmation, yes. Evan was left speechless, utterly powerless in the face of his young master's cold detachment. Despite the impassive, emotionless mask Alon wore, his mind was a whirlwind of thought. I did not anticipate this. It was not this strong in the game, if I remember correctly. In the turn-based combat system of psychedelia, spells could be enhanced through seals or incantations each turn. In such a system, every victory in battle increased a character's attack power by 10%. In the battle just now against the stone giants, Alon had used a chain lightning spell, employing 4 seals and 1 incantation. It had been strengthened over 5 turns. As he recalled the fight, Alon found himself unconsciously retracing every spell and motion he had used in that encounter. He had used a total of 4 spells, and the accumulated lightning strikes were amplified simultaneously, forming a configuration perfectly suited for a large-scale lightning assault. In exchange for the limitation that forced him to use both seals and incantations for each spell, he received something else in return. As he pondered, Alon vaguely imagined a voice echoing in his mind, intoning strange words, "O forgotten mortal, who still remembers the seals and mysteries of the great god, I thank you for inheriting his will." Thinking this through, he drew a conclusion for himself: that must be why the spells were amplified many times over. Throughout the walk back outside, Alan's mind remained tangled in thoughts. Yet the power of this second-tier magic had proven overwhelmingly sufficient, far exceeding even his own expectations. He found himself astonished. Evan, trailing behind him, finally exhaled in relief, marveling silently, at last. We are out. Exhausted, he collapsed onto a stone ledge against the cliff, muttering complaints under his breath, remarking that this had been even more taxing than the battle itself. Evan, irritated by Alan's weary demeanor, muttered half in scolding, half in question, "Who in the world would even think of making a place this horrifying?" Alon did not answer, his eyes scanning the surroundings calmly. He drifted back into thought, reflecting on the Whispering Maze, which also had another name. According to information circulating online shared through map uploads and guidebooks, the maze had gained enormous attention in online communities. People kept asking, "What is the Palon Maze?" everywhere. It was just Palon, Palon. But what the hell was it? The Whispering Maze, a mid-level grinding area in the game, was said by the director to have an owner. You could grind endlessly if you ignored the rewards, and over time, it had come to be called the Palon Maze. This question lingered in Alan's mind, nagging him incessantly. Unconsciously, he muttered aloud, "Then, from when did it start being called the Palon Maze?" Evan, half hearing him and confused, asked, "Sorry. What did you just say?" Alon did not repeat himself. Instead, he pulled Evan to his feet and deflected, saying, "Let us head east. After 3 weeks of grueling training, there is something I want to do once we get back." Hearing this, Evan could only helplessly groan, "What, you have been working harder than I thought." As he guided Evan away, Alon continued mulling over his observations. Choosing seals aligned with the spell would enhance its power, and selecting the correct incantation would further strengthen its properties. That was how the game mechanics worked. But unlike in the game, where visuals remained static and only attack stats increased each victory, granting a 10% boost to attack power, Alon noticed something different from the previous battle. This time, every seal visibly altered the spell, and each incantation produced distinct effects. Thinking on this, Alon wondered quietly to himself, just now, even though it was only a spell technique, could it be that my control over mana is refined enough to perceive these subtle transformations? Shaking off the tangle of thoughts, Alon finally relaxed, telling himself that once his mana had fully recovered, he would have to test it again. After all, everything had ended well. In the deep, shadowed forest that night, Alon and Evan remained unaware of Rhine, who was cloaked and hidden in the darkness. Only after they had left did she lift her head. Swiftly and silently, she leapt from one cliff to another, making her way into the heart of the maze. When she reached her destination, Rhine paused. Before her stood a massive stone, etched with countless raised, colored inscriptions. She recognized immediately that these were the script of the Alanar Empire. Despite the gravity of the moment, she allowed herself a quiet thought. At last, everything has turned out well. Ryan removed her hood and cloak, revealing herself fully. She traced her fingers over the colored inscriptions, translating the strange lines. They read, "For a friend soon to be left alone, the sword Saint Palon stood resolute." As she touched the glyphs, vivid images flashed through her mind. The great Palon had repelled the invasion of the Dark Pretenders and defeated Alakolaka, the devourer of his people's hearts. The radiant emperor, the legendary Palon, remained etched in the hearts of his subjects, wielding the divine sword to bravely battle the colossal, vicious dragon. The vision shifted, replaying a scene of Rhine herself hovering above, surrounded by flying books. A voice echoed in her mind, constant and omniscient, "I know all, for I was born with a grand mission," as if emanating from an ancient library. Returning to reality, Rhine recalled the moment she had stood on the cliff, watching Elan below. She realized then that yes, Palon had been the one to create it. She understood that Queen Bloodia was not as recorded in the histories, and something extraordinary had been at play. Images of Queen Bloodia, the great Emperor Palon, and Elan swirled persistently in Rhine's mind. She could not stop her thoughts from racing. Even the great moon had once called Palon a friend worthy of reverence. Moreover, the incantations that he whispered did not exist in any record in the ancient library. Recalling Alan's battle with the colossal beings, it was the spells he had used that puzzled her most. She was consumed with curiosity. Who, after all, was this man? When she finally exited the maze, Rhine's demeanor shifted slightly. Bashfully, she murmured to herself, "Everything the Scarlet Moon said was true. I am ashamed for blindly following orders." But just as quickly, her expression returned to its usual icy calm. A question and confirmation rolled into one. "So, he has arrived." Looking up at the figure perched on the tree branch, Rhine asked with curiosity, "Did you manage to get the information?" Deus replied coldly, "No. The man in black is dead." Suddenly, his neck twisted twice in midair, a feat left behind by Elan. Rhine, hearing this, simply said, "I will have to report this so it can be handled appropriately." In the late night darkness, the pale moon hung high above. Through the dense canopy of the forest, two figures shot across the sky and vanished from sight. Meanwhile, at the Zenonia Count's mansion, Kalia sat on the sofa in her room. She took a small sip of tea, her gaze distant, and spoke in a quiet, detached tone. So it was not just a rumor, after all. Lost in thought, Kalia unconsciously recalled Elan, her mind silently reflecting. His eyes. So cold and indifferent, like a bottomless chasm. A hint of irony crept into her mind. Famous, huh? She leaned back against the sofa, answering her own question. Indeed. Count Zenonia is both powerful and renowned. Yet Kalia's sharp gaze darkened, and she muttered a remark under her breath, "But it is strange. For someone who rarely mingles, she is the one everyone deems famous." Rising from the sofa, she walked slowly toward the man sitting at the desk. With a smile, she asked, "Is not it strange, father?" At her voice, the man paused mid-stroke, pen in hand, and turned to look at her. He regarded Kalia seriously as she continued, "Because you are the count, are not you?" Kalia approached her father, a cold smile curling her lips. With a snap of her fingers, the man's eyes, reflecting her image, twitched uncontrollably. Helpless, he slumped forward, his hand loosening around the brush. Kalia, watching this, felt immense satisfaction. A triumphant, arrogant thought ran through her mind. No one would ever suspect that I am the one truly running the family, while father pretends to be a fool. How could they possibly figure it out? She recalled the banquet, when Elan did not realize that the watchers from afar had been arranged by her. Even when he kindly warned her that many eyes were observing, Kalia had inwardly rejoiced. Even the spies I planted seemed to have been spotted. At that moment, a guard rushed in, panicked, calling out, "Miss Kalia." Leaning against the wall with her hands on her hips, Kalia asked, "What is it?" The guard hurriedly replied, "Miss, please return to your room immediately." Following him back, Kalia opened the door to find the spy sprawled against the wall, bloodied and lifeless. The guard carefully reported, "It seems the seal has not activated yet, which means he did not reveal any secrets." Kalia's expression grew stern. "He deliberately placed it in my room." She paused mid-sentence, leaving her thought unfinished. A few seconds later, she laughed bitterly, questioning herself, how could they have discovered this? From the very first meeting, I was hit right at my greatest weakness. Was not I? Kalia's smile was twisted, tinged with anger, her face contorted into a scowl. Meanwhile, Evan and Alon were dozing in the carriage on their way back. Evan's snores were so loud that Alon stirred, groggily nudging his ears before drifting half asleep again. The scene shifted elsewhere, to the Ultia Duke family's territory at night. Loria sat in a carriage, her heart pounding with fear. It was clear this was no ordinary person. She recalled the patron of the underworld, whose cold eyes mirrored her father's. People like that were absolute forces, ones you could never confront. A heavy sadness filled Loria as she thought of Alon, turning away so indifferently. He was my last lifeline. Disappointment weighed on her, yet she doubted he would ever accept such a risky, losing deal. At that moment, her thoughts drifted to her siblings stripped of all assets and power by the most cowardly of her brothers. The Tamalian eldest son, Malian eldest daughter, the youngest daughter Pyrene, and the youngest son Kig. Looking at herself, she silently lamented, "I have nothing left." Before her stood a grand building, both familiar and alien. "Until now, I survived by exploiting my father's love and pity. What am I to do now?" Reluctantly, she stepped into the cold, imposing structure. Suddenly, a loud voice called out, "Miss Loria, the youngest lady has returned." Two maids came running from afar, panic written all over their faces. Miss Pyrene and young Master Kig. They have been killed." Loria's face drained of color. What? Images of the two flashed in her mind, people willing to stab even their own family. "Alone, that is impossible." She asked quietly, then, "What about Master Tamalian and Miss Malian?" Immediately, a horrified scream echoed from within. The servants rushed toward the sound, all in panic. Inside, the two were engaged in a fierce struggle, swords clashing. Master Tamalian and Miss Malian locked in combat. The scene descended into chaos. Loria stood frozen, bewildered, wondering what was happening. Unbeknownst to them, a small shadow moved swiftly atop the building, vanishing as fast as lightning. Raiden's cold smile marked the completion of his task. The figure leapt away without leaving a trace. The servants scattered in utter panic. Loria muttered under her breath, "Finally." Fear gripped her face as she recalled Alan's cryptic words. He had looked back and said something puzzling, "Everything will turn out fine." Alan's expression at that moment was terrifying. A predator lying in wait, hiding his claws to seize his position, the true puppet master behind the Duke family's affairs. Loria trembled with fear at the thought. So that is it. Just like him. In a single night, I have become the sole heir of the ducal house. After a moment, she let out a quiet breath. She silently wondered how irrationally binding her contract with that demon might have been, yet she knew there was no turning back. Immediately, she turned and walked on. If I betray him, what would happen? There have already been too many precedents. At that moment, she made a firm decision. I have no choice but to continue down the path I have chosen. Time shifted to 2 months later, in Alan's mansion. A man approached with respect, announcing, "I have come by order of Duke Ultia." Alon blinked in surprise. Duke Ultia. Evan, standing nearby, leaned forward, eyes wide. Inside, they saw a bottle of wine, clearly rare Cernance wine, reputedly worth thousands of gold per bottle. Seeing it in person was astonishing. Alongside it was a letter. Alan's surprise deepened as he read, "To Loria Ultia." Not the Duke, but Loria, the youngest daughter. She actually prepared this. Why send it to me, while I am running and struggling to survive? He looked up at the man. Was this really sent to me? The man bowed. Yes, it was personally prepared by the Duke, and I was ordered to deliver it directly to you. Alon was suddenly struck. The Duke, personally. Wait. That means Loria, the youngest. Even he had not anticipated it. She had already become Duke Ultia herself, now focused on the paperwork before her. After a moment, Loria stretched and spoke. 2 months have flown by so quickly. She could not help but recall, after her father's funeral he had passed away from illness. I conducted the succession ceremony and became the duke. Standing, she sighed. At first, I could not even enter this office. She could never forget that terrifying night. Even with her siblings' sudden deaths, she had avoided all suspicion. At that time, Loria had remained anxious, relying on her alibi of the masquerade ball. Even her secret organization had been targeted by her siblings, so when she returned to the mansion, that day should have been the most dangerous day of her life. I truly had lost all power. Loria's heart raced in fear and confusion as she realized, too late, that someone had taken advantage of the entire situation. He used everything against me. She quietly imagined the scene in her mind. Outwardly, he had rejected her coldly, yet he had handled everything perfectly behind the scenes. Recalling it, Loria still felt a twinge of confusion. How far ahead must he have been thinking? I did not even report the funeral, afraid of disturbing anyone. She walked alone through the magnificent mansion, clearly aware that he needed Ultia for some plan, which was why he had come to her. As she moved, she thought to herself, even though I have consolidated all the organizations under Ultia's banner, it still does not compare to the strength he is hiding. In her mind, she made a quiet deduction, that means he wants something else from me. Alan's image flashed before her eyes. Palacio, a kingpin of the underworld, who had built his empire solely through business. If it was something he did not have but I did. He seemed even darker in her eyes now, manipulating the political arena from the shadows, his reputation, Ultia's affairs. Then Loria looked up at the painting on the wall. For now, I have to focus on the tasks at hand. She turned to stand before the Duke's portrait, thinking, my benefactor will contact me soon. A faint smile touched her lips. I hope the thank you gift pleased him.